What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Hopefully you had a good weekend this past weekend, got to play some games or get some stuff done. And of course, it's Labor Day here in the United States, so, well, if you're off for work for that, hopefully you get a chance to hang out and play some games then too. It's nice to get one of those just random 3-day weekends for kind of the work week. But today we have some pretty fun stuff to talk about, so let's get started. Now, the first thing we're talking about today is it's been a developing story pretty much throughout, well, PAX West, because of course, when PAX West went live, people got to play NBA 2K on the Nintendo Switch, and it was kind of revealed slowly, because we did talk about this a bit before, but it's been kind of revealed over time that you're going to need SD card, at least for NBA 2K. Well, now Nintendo is pretty much saying you're going to need SD cards for other games in the future, other games coming up, because either the card itself, the game card, for some reason, I guess, can't hold enough data, whether it's because the game cards that are larger are more expensive, which is more than likely the case, or they're just not available. I have a feeling they're just more expensive, so the companies are thinking, at least the manufacturers are thinking, well, we'll put it on a smaller card, and then they can download the rest of the game files. Think of something like Perfect Dark, where if you didn't have the expansion pack, you can only play like half the game. So in this case, you probably will need to have an SD card for games outside of NBA 2K18, and it's hard to say which one's coming up, but this is something I guess they just have to work around with the 32 gigs of onboard memory. Now, Nintendo also announced a partnership with Western Digital, who does obviously produce the Sandisk memory cards, the micro SD cards that we use in the Switch, our cell phones, the 3DS. Pretty much any of these devices, you've probably bought a Sandisk memory card in the past at some point. Well, they are going to be partnering with them for 64 gig cards and 128 gig cards, and they will have Nintendo characters, Nintendo's branding, all of this stuff all over it, and they're going to be putting those, I assume, into stores like Best Buy's, for example, or Target's, or maybe Walmart. Walmart seems to kind of stop their storage capacity around 64 gigs. Mine doesn't have anything above that. Usually a 64 gig card is kind of where they draw the line, at least at my Super Walmart. I would assume Best Buy, because they deal with a lot of cell phones, probably have the larger cards, and you'll probably see those pop up. But now this is interesting, because there's two ways you can look at this. Yes, you can look at this as a problem. You know what? I thought if I bought the physical game, I wouldn't have to get memory cards, because, you know, the 32 gigs on board 32 gig would be enough to do my save games and stuff like that. And then on the other side, you look at it and you're saying, well, at least this gives the manufacturers a way to put their game on the system if they either can't afford or can't really collect the memory cards they need, or at least the game cards that are large enough. Because what if it is a 50 gig game and there aren't any 64 gig cards available for you to use? We've seen the flash storage issues, right? We've seen it. Nintendo has pretty much, without telling us, has told us, right? We've seen the Wall Street Journal write about it, how flash memory is really at an all-time high in demand, and it's just not enough supply to go around. So this may be a way temporarily, I hope it's temporary anyway, temporarily to kind of, well, bring games like NBA 2K18 that would have been a problem, at least give us a way to get it, right? If, you know, you get the card and you still have to download. In that case, I have also heard people say that if they put it out physically, it might just be a game code. There is a lot of really speculation and rumors running rampant right now. Really, we're going to have to get to the date for this game to come out, obviously halfway through September, and at that point we'll at least know what's going on here, because it's kind of confusing. Something else that's confusing, by the way, is the Amiibo support. We heard that there's Amiibo support, but then Game Informer said there's not any Amiibo support. So US Gamer said earlier on in the week that there's Amiibo support of some kind. And then Game Informer has pretty much found out that there is not Amiibo support, but they want to add it down the road if they can get it figured out, and what I guess the enhancements would be. Super confusing all the way around for this NBA 2K situation. I think that's what happens, though, as you get closer to release and there's not a lot of information, and you start throwing all this info out there. What, 2 weeks? 2 weeks until release? I mean, we hadn't even seen gameplay footage until then. It's crazy. And at this point, we still don't even have direct feed footage to really compare it. It seems like an odd situation. It definitely seems like something in the background was holding the whole thing up. Probably had to do with, like I said, flash storage and building these game cards. Well, at least we know it's going to be out soon, and then at that point, you can buy NBA 2K. At least we know it's going to be pretty much parity in terms of features, not so much in terms of frame rate or probably even visuals, but you'll be able to play the full experience on the go. we're going to have to find out what happens when it comes out. It's just very odd. Let me know what you think about the SD card situation, because you need an SD card for the most part to play the entirety of NBA 2K, and probably going forward, maybe like I said, next year, maybe like Madden comes out, and well, you need an SD card to install the files on, or to download the extra files. It's very odd, although I do think, you know what, if you're going to Switch, you should probably get an SD card. I mean, it really, 32 gigabytes on board is not enough to even download Dragon Quest 1 and 2, for example. So, you know what, you need an SD card. They're not super expensive. It's not like we're buying Vita memory cards over here. And we had a couple of other cool things come out of PAX West. There were a few games we were really looking at, other than, say, NBA 2K, which was a big question mark. Rocket League was a big question mark, and Rhyme is still a question mark. Well, good news with Rhyme. GameXplain seemed to be able to capture some footage of the game running in a camera, basically recording the portable Switch. The thing about the Switch at these kind of conventions, they seem to get away with not having any kind of capture of the game by just putting it out portably, and they just say, well, we didn't bring any way to directly hook it up to a TV, so I guess you can't capture any footage. It seems very convenient for them on that end, but at least GameXplain managed to capture footage, and overall, Rhyme looks like it's running well. I can't tell, obviously, because we're going through a camera looking at the screen, but according to their video, it runs well from what we're seeing with frame rate. The visuals look fine. Again, we're not close enough and we don't have it in person, but overall it looks good. The big thing I was worried about would be the frame rate, but it seemed to run fine, and of course that is in portable mode, whereas when it gets hooked to the TV, it may either go up in resolution to something like 900p maybe the frame rate does steady a little bit. Hard to say though. At least we know at this point it is working. They were playing it in portable mode, which is the weaker state of the Switch, obviously, because it downclocks, and it was running fine. We also had some pictures come out, at least one, of Rocket League being played as well on the Switch. Kind of some, again, off-screen pictures of it. It wasn't hooked up to a TV or anything, but we did see it being played in handheld with a picture. And what's good here is everyone, at least, who kind of walked away from it with impressions, did say it was running great. 60 frames per second. They did target 720p, but it does keep a nice, solid 60 frames. According to everyone who played it and then kind of gave their impressions, whether it was IGN or, again, GameXplain, they did say it ran well. They couldn't really tell the resolution, although we know now that it's going to be 720p anyway when it is docked. Of course, handheld, it's going to be 720p. Dynamic resolution may be in effect there. Maybe it drops down into the 500s for all we know. But according to them, the frame rate, which is the most important part, by the way, of Rocket League, because it's supposed to be a high-flying, competitive-style soccer game, was solid. And that's all I want. Portable Rocket League, I know I'm going to make some kind of sacrifice. I get that. But don't sacrifice frame rate. That does not look to be the case, so I'm excited to get this game for a third time and be able to play it portably. That's very exciting to me. Next up, there was an announcement from Capcom that Dead Rising 4, which is a game that I would say at this point we can all agree flopped for Capcom. It didn't even reach 1 million units sold between the PC and the Xbox One, which is crazy because it wasn't too long ago that Dead Rising was a good selling franchise, and for a while it was exclusive to the Xbox brand. We've seen that before though with a lot of games like even Mass Effect, BioShock, that did eventually leave the Xbox brand in terms of exclusivity and kind of go multi-platform. But Dead Rising 4 is going to the PS4 now. That was a timed exclusive for Microsoft, as we saw. It came out last Christmas, around there. Early December it came out. Looks like it's going to kind of repeat that same path. It's going to be December 5th. It's coming out $49.99. It's going to include all the extra stuff that came out, including the mini golf kind of game they put in there. And it's also going to come with different outfits. But one is kind of functional. It's going to have the Mega Man outfit, as again kind of similar to what we saw in the first Dead Rising. But it's going to have Mega Man outfit, arm cannon. They're going to have outfits from Resident Evil and also Street Fighter. Now, the only thing I can see here is that Capcom is hoping to get a little bit of a better response from the PlayStation community. I don't know if they're going to get a better response. I have a feeling it'll sell better than what the Xbox One did, but it would have to sell less than like 500,000 units on the PS4 audience that has over 63 million possible customers. So I would hope that they can sell more than 500,000 units. Otherwise, I hate to say it, Capcom, you might want to shelve Dead Rising for a while. I'm sure Microsoft is probably asking you, hey, you should bring Dead Rising 5 back out. You bring it over. I think at this point, fans just aren't feeling it right now. Shelve it for a few years, then bring it back and kind of like, a big reveal at E3. Hey, guess what, guys? You've probably been missing Dead Rising because it's been gone for 3 years. Dead Rising 5, boom, it's back. that's the only thing I can think of, because it's just not cutting it. People just aren't buying it, and I have a feeling people aren't going to care about it coming out on the PS4. People will still buy it at Christmas time, and yeah, it'll probably sell more than the Xbox One allotment. But at this point, Dead Rising in general, it needs to go away for a little while. And in our last bit of news, there's a pretty interesting option, it appears, coming to the Xbox One. And this is something I was kind of expecting, mostly because the Xbox One does support, like, at least Windows 10. I mean, it's running it, so it should support this eventually. I'm surprised it technically isn't worked into games now, because you can already hook up a keyboard and use it with the Xbox One. But according to Mike Ybarra, this was at a PAX West panel that they were holding, where they were talking about different features, upcoming things for the Xbox in general. He did talk about how, well, keyboard and mouse support is coming to the Xbox One sooner than you think. Again, this was from PAX West, a panel they're holding. He said, keyboard and mouse support is definitely coming. We have to be very smart in how we do that. We'll leave it a lot up to developer choice. A lot of people tweet me and say, you can't do this because of fairness, and we understand that. We run two platforms, the Xbox platform and the Windows platform. And so when we bring keyboard and mouse, we'll coach developers and say, look, you've got to think about your multiplayer pools. If you have a competitive game, people are probably going to want the choice to say, I'll play with other keyboard and mouse people, or I'll play only with controller people, or that I'll play with any of those. So you'll see our first game supporting keyboard and mouse soon. I can't announce what that is, but soon. And based on developer interest, they'll choose to do keyboard and mouse or not. Now, I saw this and I instantly, immediately thought Age of Empires, because, well, they haven't announced it for anything other than Windows, but if the Xbox, well, if it works with a keyboard and mouse, why wouldn't you bring something like that over, right? A real-time strategy game makes sense to kind of just bring over to the Xbox brand. Why not? I mean, you have that, and you have the Age of Empires Definitive Edition. Both that and 4 could both come over, and you have them. So why not? I mean, that's the big thing there. Keyboard and mouse is something that the Xbox brand can push. Like, hey, look, you can play competitively. I know competitively on a console with keyboard and mouse, when of course you can have a PC that runs at 150 frames per second, so there's no competitive disadvantage at having 30 frames. But still, you can do that. You can say, look, you can get this Xbox for cheap, and you can work on, your mouse and keyboard skills on that. If you don't have the money to buy a $1,000 or $1,200 computer, you can do that. You can get this, and it's something that the PlayStation brand doesn't offer. Don't play with controllers there. Play with the PC and mouse on our system, or at least give yourself the option, right? That's the thing. Options are good for consumers. You can either play with them or not. And if they add that into multiplayer, where you're like, well, I'll tick a box, and then I just won't play with controller people when I'm using my keyboard and mouse, or if I'm using a controller, I just won't play with keyboard and mouse people because they may have an advantage over me. I like the idea here, and of course it opens up options for these real-time strategy games to come over. Things like Halo Wars obviously would work much better with a keyboard and mouse on the Xbox. I know obviously it was on the PC, but Age of Empires then would be, I think, less of a burden for developers to figure out for a controller if you say, hey, look, you get this on the Xbox, make sure you have a keyboard and mouse ready, because that's what you're going to need. That's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me think about any of the stuff we talked about today, whether it is the SD card necessity on the Switch. Do you think it's fine the way they're doing that? I mean, I guess they have to get around this interesting game card storage issue where they're saying, look, the game card will have some files on it that you can play without connecting the internet and downloading them to your SD card, or even unpacking to an SD card if that's the case. Hard to say what they're going to do there, but do you think that's all right? I mean, I don't really mind, because I have SD cards all over the place, and honestly, they're not crazy expensive. You can get, obviously, decent SD cards for $40 for a larger size, or you can get a smaller one just to play the game if you want. I think most of us have SD cards that have a Switch because, well, we probably bought them ahead of time because, well, we figure we'd need the space. Also, let me think about, really at this point, guys, Dead Rising 4. Do you think that's it? Do you think the Dead Rising franchise needs to be shelved? And do you think, really, that's the last call for that series? It's crazy to think, because I swear, Dead Rising 1 and 2 were so popular around that time in gaming. And it's interesting to see where some of these franchises end up. I mean, remember Halo, how crazy that was for a while? And now Halo 5 comes out, and it kind of fell off a cliff in terms of popularity. It's interesting to see some of these really big franchises just kind of fall from grace. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you next time.